Okay, we'll get started. It's 4 o'clock. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the February 20th, 2020 Board of Health meeting. Just like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded by video and audio. Is there anything that's not on the agenda that you've looked at that anybody would like to talk about? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll move on to Roberto's director's report.
So you should have a director's report in writing in front of you. Just a quick overview of, in general, this last month, we've had 741 tasks completed. Everything from annual reviews and renewal permit renewals, to 112 building permit reviews. So it's been a little busy. A few complaint checks, mostly when the winter rolls in and the leaves fall, you can really see the trash in some people's yards and things. So we always get a little bit of an uptick in complaints. And then we've had 27 septic system reviews and evaluations. But in general, that's been pretty good.
Yeah.
In the back, you'll see that this last month we had our first meeting. I got appointed to the local and regional public health advisory committee by the commissioner, the state commissioner. So we had our first meeting. It's a public policy group that's going to set the new the workforce development plan and the workforce pipeline for public health in the state of Massachusetts, where they're expecting that approximately 40% of the public health workforce will be retiring within the next 10 years. So it's how to prepare for that. We're still continuing the influenza outbreak. It's still out there. It's still something we need to pay attention to. At every available opportunity, we're putting information out to say, if you have a cough, make sure you wear your mask, stay home. If you don't go into the doctor's office, if you don't have to, call in to see if they can call in your prescriptions, things like that. Do self-isolation. The influenza outbreak this year is particularly virulent. We're looking to put a few PSAs out on NCTV and on Geno as well.
We're seeing both strains, A and B?
We're seeing both strains, predominantly influenza B, though, this year. I think it's something like a 70-30 split. Influenza B is the 70%. We're continuing to meet with the island vendors about the plastics meeting. There's going to be a plastics forum in a few weeks. Let me actually pull that up for you. I forgot to write it in here. My apologies. Okay, so we have a meeting with Stop and Shop to discuss plastics on March 5th at 1 p.m. And then the week after, we should also be. And that's right, you're in the meetings. Yeah. Thank you, Graham.
It's on the 21st or 24th at the Great Harbor Yacht Club at 1 p.m.
Okay, so the forum is on the 24th at the Great Harbor Yacht Club, and more information will be pushed out in that. My apologies, I didn't put it in my report. Thank you, Graham. And then on Friday, we had the Genetic Mice Steering Committee meeting. So it's been the charter was officially voted in, and we have a chair and vice chair. Malcolm is the chair, and Dr. Emily Goldstein Murphy, formerly of the Mariah Mitchell Association, is the vice chair. And then right now, we're just entering the town meeting finalization. It's just prepping for town meeting at this point. It's a lot of work. And that's really quick. Starting next month, though, I will also be presenting departmental activities for the human services programs as well.
Great, thanks. Okay, we'll move on. Loan amount for 24 Friendship.
Yes. So this is the loan for 24 Friendship. We just need to increase it by $6,000 when the original approval was put in. They had to hold on for a little bit, and then once the work came in, the actual work, it came in above what we had originally estimated. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It's not a ridiculous charge. It's just we didn't appropriate enough. There's no objections on our side.
You get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And this-
Loan, 9 Bayberry.
Yep, the next two loans are septic to sewers. This one, the 9 Bayberry one, came in this week, but rather than making them wait until next month, we figured we should just go ahead and put it in on this agenda. Also, pretty straightforward, septic to sewer connection. We have no objection.
Okay. You get a-
So moved.
All in favor? All in favor? Aye. So we're doing both of those, or
Yes, so we should also
do it separate?
do a vote for 5 Wama Squid.
So 5 is same thing?
Same thing, septic to sewer. This one is also pretty straightforward. It's not that expensive either. No objections.
Get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, variance request for 6 and 6A, 9 Washington.
So we will let Don Bracken for the client.
This one may not be as straightforward as those loan applications. I'm going to pass out just a copy of the assessors map before I get started to refer to.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You may recall one of these properties, 6 and 6A, from a few years ago. We were in front of the Board of Health asking for a tight tank at this location rather than the current system that is there for the two properties. Back in around 2010, we received a permit from the Board of Health to install a gray water system for 2 dwellings on the property, and each dwelling has a composting toilet system. Because of the difficulties dealing with the composting toilet system, we came back asking if we could put a tight tank in instead. That was denied by the board. Since that time, the same owners purchased another property about 500 feet away at 9 Washington Ave. That system has a past Title V system. What they would like to propose is, again, trying to modify the system at 6 and 6A by including the upgrade at number 9. We've done nitrogen loading calculations. There are several variances that we need, but I'd like to sort of pause at discussing this concept before we get into those details. So the bottom line is, by putting a new IA system in at 6 and 6A, removing the gray water tank system in composting toilets, and by upgrading the system at number 9, there'll be a net decrease in nitrogen loading of about 25% within the Zone A of the Nantucket Harbor watershed area. The owners feel that, with this net benefit, it will help solve their issues they're having right now with the maintenance of the composting toilets, and that'll be an overall improvement to the water quality in the area under that proposal. So with that, I'll pause, and hopefully, if you can understand that concept, it's a little convoluted, and then we can discuss the specific waivers if it's something that you're willing to entertain.
Anybody want to start? I think, just reviewing this from the deal that the owners cut in the past, that was the only way they were ever going to be able to get that house moved onto that lot. And the composting toilets were part of it, deed restricted to actually have no black water ever enter the lot on 6 and 6A Washington. So my feeling is this this isn't let's make a deal with the board. You know, it's, you're kind of stuck with the agreement they cut to move that house on there.
Well, I think the restriction for the Blackwater on the lot, that could be modified, you know, with a vote from the board. I understand, you know, they made a deal, but this was never anticipated. And I think the bottom line from a Board of Health perspective is that there will actually be a net benefit, you know, towards the goals that this board has been trying to achieve.
Well, I think the owners are just, this is the second time they've been in trying to get something that's to benefit them so they don't have to deal with the compost toilets. And the only way they would have got the house on there is the deal they cut. I mean, this, and I think 9 Washington is, you know, it's not a contiguous property. It's a totally separate property, which should be left in its own.
Right, but right now it has no IA, so the nitrogen loading on that property right now is about twice what it could be, you know, with the improvements.
The property has a few, you know, couple issues with it right now, but I mean, eventually will an IA be in there? Yes, when the reg changes and they want to do something or sell the property. And I don't think the net benefit is really that much by removing that gray water system and putting the IA in. It's just is listed as 6 and 6A. Has the property been subdivided?
It had been subdivided. It was one property at one time, and then because of the 2 structures were on the property prior to zoning being created, it was allowed to be broken off into 2 separate lots. But they're still in the same control.
Right, but now you're creating a you know, when you subdivide it, you created a non-conforming lot with the system.
Right, that is something that would have to be rectified. It was supposed to be recorded. It was supposed to be recorded at the time the lots were created, but that wasn't followed through with. So that is something that
Right, you would have had to come
has
to
to take
the
place.
that would have had to come to the board before that took place, or it should have. The aggregate property that was also part of that deal is gone.
Correct. So we're not.
It's in the ocean.
Right. We're just trying to, obviously, it's in our benefit too, but I think makes sense. We're just focusing on what we have there today.
Well,
Whether what was
right.
done in 2010 or not should have been done. This is where we are.
We had some with the property in Hummock Pond Road where we didn't allow the association to use they wanted to use land that was a half a mile down the street as the aggregate. And when you do an aggregate plan through DEP and stuff, it's supposed to be down gradient. This board, I could tell you now, if we heard this and tried to use 336 Nantucket with where it was and the coastal erosion, there's no way we would have even allowed that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
The groundwater flow is towards Hither Creek on 6. The groundwater flow, even back then, they weren't in the harbor watershed. The groundwater flow is towards the ocean. So I don't think we would have allowed that to happen. And I mean, especially with the lots not being contiguous and in the aggregate, not down gradient. I mean, so you're adding that extra loading, which is the groundwater flow, is towards Hither Creek. Right now, with the composting, the milligram discharge on you is actually pretty low. It's like 11 something milligrams, right?
Right. So the existing 6 and 6A, even with the IA, by taking out the composting toilets, there still will be an increase in nitrogen loading.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why, we're being specific and saying the net within the Nantucket Harbor watershed area.
Yeah.
It's just almost by coincidence the properties are owned by the same person. I mean, people could team up and have aggregates.
There's a lot of people that own multiple properties that could, right? It's
That would disturb me.
Yeah.
Stephen, my question is, this thing that's on, it says no black water shall be discharged at the facility. Was that a local thing, or was that through the state?
That was on the agreement that was recorded at the registry for the, and able to get that house moved there.
So do we have the right to rescind that?
I don't know, I believe, I thought it said in perpetuity.
I'd feel uncomfortable rescinding it. I think we have to deal with what we have now.
I mean, so the way this reads right now, even if they put an IA system in, they still can't have regular toilets in that place. They still have to have compost toilets, right?
No. No, they wouldn't have to have the compost toilets.
So this would go away. Is that what you're saying?
Right, they're asking for us to waive that.
All right, so do we have the right to waive it? That's my question.
The board could, but it's a slippery slope. I think they're stuck with the deal that they made. I mean, the lot's small. The only way to get that second dwelling, which they owned, was to cut the deal with the composting toilets.
Right.
And that was the deal. The net benefit is, to put in the terms of our former director, is de minimis. I
Right,
mean,
because the ice, yes. I like the way you put it, if we take the property as individual, forget about 9, the best system right now is already there.
is there. Right. I mean, we could have put in the aggregate plan that, part of the stipulation would have been to, if the aggregate land is claimed by coastal erosion, the house goes away. I mean, this was quite a deal that they got in 2010, and because that wouldn't happen now, especially on a lot like that size. So I feel that you're stuck with the deal that you made, and eventually, maybe when the sewer comes out, then you're all set. You hook to the sewer, and
Then we're all happy.
then we're all happy. Right. So, we waive these restrictions, and you get to put an IA in, and then a recorded shared system on 2 separate properties. Now you have something that's worth something that other people can't do. So
I agree.
that's how I feel anyway. So.
No, I agree.
I make a motion, we do not accept the variance.
I'll second.
I was just going to ask if Gail Greenwald is here, the owner, if she might want to just say something before you vote, if that's okay.
Sure.
Do you want to say anything, Gail?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I appreciate very much you hearing our proposal. I know it's unusual. A couple of things I wanted to just point out quickly. First of all, when we got the approval to move the 2 houses onto the property back in 2010, converting 6 Washington Avenue from a 2-bedroom conventional septic, which is what was there, to 4-bedroom gray water only, did result in a 30-something% reduction in nitrogen loading at that site, setting aside 336 Nantucket Road altogether. So it's not like we were trying to get away with something. There was a significant net benefit just in allowing us to do that, and we appreciate it very much. But we didn't know what we were getting into. We really didn't. We made a mistake. We've been living with these composting toilets for several years now. We've had tons of problems with them, and I won't go through all of those unless you want to hear about them. I won't. I don't think it's probably worth your time for me to spell out all the issues that we've had. But I would like to, if I could, just take a minute to tell you what it's like to live with composting toilets in your home. First of all, the bowl doesn't hold any water. You use a foot pedal to bring in a little water to flush when you're done. And you can't use too much water because the composting system can't handle high fluid levels. So what happens is if there's any residue in the bowl, you have to clean it out manually with toilet paper. You have to tell your guests when they come over for dinner or spending time with you how to use the toilet and how to clean up after themselves. That's one part of living with it that we just didn't know about before we got them. Secondly, there's an odor. You know, the composting systems are in the cellars of both of our houses, and there are vent pipes up on the roof, and the fumes from the vent pipes waft down to the ground level regularly. So it's not at all unusual to walk outside our house and smell human sewage. Thirdly, there's fruit flies. Both the systems attract fruit flies. You have to go down every day and spin the drum and put composting material in. And the fruit flies, you can't spray insecticides. Again, that's bad for the microbes in the composter. So that's not too bad when you have to go downstairs, but when you use the bathroom upstairs and occasionally fruit flies come up through the toilet, it's just not, it's very hard to live with, I will say to you. And you know, I will say this is, I'm not trying to trash composting technology. I think it's great for cabins in the woods and for parks and et cetera, but these are our homes. My sister lives in one of the houses year round, and my husband and I use the other house very regularly throughout the year and for a good part of the summer. And so what we're really trying to do here, and I apologize that we keep coming back, but we have a problem that we're looking for a solution for, and we've been trying to be creative and act in good faith, completely good faith, in proposing something that would solve this problem that we've been wrestling with for several years now, but also be a net benefit, a real net benefit for Nantucket. We're not obligated to put an IA system down at 9 Washington, and we won't do it. It's very expensive. We're pouring money into trying to solve this problem, and we understand the reluctance that you might have to consider this, but we hope, again, that you will just give it some thought. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and you know, maybe as technology gets better, the composting part will, people that manufacture those toilets will figure it out.
I agree. I mean, that's the deal they made in the beginning, and they were satisfied with the deal when they got it.
I mean, if you really didn't want to deal with them, you could have somebody move the house, go back to the 2-bedroom conventional septic. It's a deal that was made. That's how I feel. So
Right. I agree. And number 9 has nothing to do with this at all. I mean, it's number 9 is all right the way it is, so that shouldn't even be discussed, so I agree with you.
I'm wavering, even though I made the motion.
Made the motion?
I made a motion and we deny the variance,
I second it.
and you seconded it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote
Chairman-
against my own motion.
Chairman votes aye. Thanks. Okay.
It's another reason why we should really start thinking and encouraging sewer in Nantucket. It would make life for us all a lot easier and the environment a lot better.
Agreed.
Okay, variance requests, Rugged Scott Pool.
Yes. So the Rugged Scott neighborhood is bringing forth the pool attendant variance. I believe Attorney Arthur Reed is here representing the homeowners association.
Thank you very much, Attorney Arthur Reed, for the record, representing the Rugged Scott Homeowners Association. In this situation, the Homeowners Association finds that the requirements with regard to providing a pool attendant at all times when the pool is in operation extremely burdensome to the association and to its members. Bear in mind that this is a mixed income development. 25% of the residences in Rugged Scott are limited to 80% of median income. And we're not dealing with a lot of people who have a lot of excess funds to put into the process of providing the pool attendant. What we've tried to work out would be that there would be a pool attendant during the period from July 1st to Labor Day from 11 to 5 daily. But we would like to be able to keep the pool open to a limited extent outside those hours, between 8 and 11 and between 5 and 7 for use by adults. And that also that responsible adults, parents, would be able to have supervision over their children and use the pool during those off hours as well. Again, the pool has been in operation since, I believe, 2009. This issue has come to a head now, and we really would like to be able to continue to operate the pool on the basis that described in Mary Ann Hanley's letter, which you have, and with the ability to have the pool used off hours when the pool attendant is not there, as I just described.
On those off hours, there would be no children allowed on their own.
Children only accompanied by responsible adult, their parent or one of their parents.
And who would be responsible for enforcing all of this?
We,
Yourself.
I know. Do we have someone standing there to enforce it? No.
No.
It would be a matter of our having rules, so that we would have the obligation to follow the rules.
And if Roberto sends one of his troops out to inspect at 6 o'clock and finds that you're not compliant, what happens?
Well, we have the ability to fine, issue tickets, which we would have to issue to the association. It's a matter of how the association's rules and bylaws would have to reflect what it says here.
Arthur, my question is it says in this thing, it's a licensed pool supervisor. What does that mean? Is he certified CPR?
Yeah, I believe isn't that a defined term under
That's what we've
CMR?
that's what we've used. That the person has CPR training and
Yeah.
first aid
Okay.
training,
Right.
and knows how to dial 911.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, we had someone come before us, and my thought was that there should be someone all the time the pool's open.
It was the same groups.
It was the same group.
And that's my feeling today. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It seems like a little bit of gambling,
Here's the way I feel, Arthur, and I said it before. A gentleman said, I can guarantee you that my children would never drown in that pool. And I told him, you can stand there and say that to me all day long, but you cannot. You don't understand, that's not true. You can turn your head for 1 minute. And if there's nobody there, then there's going to be repercussions, and then people will say, well, the Board of Health said we didn't have to have anybody here full-time. And so that's my feeling. I honestly feel that if the pool's open, someone should be there all the time.
Of course, in a completely private pool, you don't have that situation, and this is far from being open to the public. In fact, it's not open to the public.
This is basically public-private. Is that what we call it? Right. That's where I stand.
Only
So the association rules would be that an adult would be present whenever children are present? Is that the understanding?
Yes.
Signage would be?
Yes, when anyone under 18 would be there, there would be a responsible adult registered with the pool supervisor, who would be responsible to ensure the safety of the minors.
I think we should stick to the regulations we have. We give these variances to this. Every other homeowner association is going to come in with different hours for this and different hours for that. It's just, to me, it seems like it's gambling, and
Would it
I don't
be,
want
yeah.
to gamble with somebody's.
Would it be burdensome for the homeowners association to make sure all adults are CPR trained and first aid trained? Then essentially all the adults in the organization would qualify as a pool attendant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you're going to be able to get, everyone who wants to use the pool, every family who wants to use the pool, to be able to do that as a practical matter. But an adult, obviously supervising their own children, is obviously going to be concerned with maintaining their safety.
Unfortunately, an accident is an accident. I mean, they just had an issue in the news, I think a week ago, where a 9-year-old almost drowned, and there were adults in the pool.
The family was in the pool.
Yeah.
It would seem to me a way to maintain the regulations was to expand the training to the residents of the organization. And you talked about, so you hire somebody during the day, and the rest of the time you have someone from the organization who is trained.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people live in there.
And, CPR training takes about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a way of moving on without having to do variances and have them comply.
For now, but they could always come back after they prove they have those certified people, right?
Personally, I think it's a good compromise. But something like having at least one member of the household, of each household trained, is also a really good way, because by having the household members trained and certified whenever they use the pool, they're technically a certified.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So if they did that, they would be in compliance with the regulation and wouldn't need a variance.
Correct.
They wouldn't have to hire you. I mean,
Don't say that.
Because then they'd be in compliance, and they wouldn't have to. They're done.
Let me request, I hear what you're saying. I understand, obviously, the concerns that you all have about this. Why don't we postpone discussion of this until the next meeting? Let me discuss it with the association, with my clients, and we'll either be back for further discussion. I'd expected that some of them were going to be here today, but I don't see anyone. Hmm? Okay. Would you like to be heard?
Could you just say your name for the record too when you come up?
Hi, I'm Brian Lenane, and I live at 9 Wood Lily Road in the Beach Plum Village. Literally live right across the street from the pool. And so the sense of this pool, it's really not a public pool. It's really, it's I don't know if you've seen it, but it's gated. You have to have the code in order to get in, and it's childproof. You have to be able to be tall enough to reach over the fence to undo the double lock and all of that, so that it's reasonably secure. And I think that when families go to the pool, they usually go as families, particularly with younger children. At least that's been my observation. And certainly I do that with all of my children and grandchildren. So that I also think that having all of the people in the community be CPR trained is not a bad thing, period. I don't think that has any negative impacts at all. The question I had is that when you made that statement about we wouldn't require a variance, that if everybody was, if as the proposal is written, if everybody in the adults were certified as CPR, and we would need to produce some kind of documentation, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. That we would be able to proceed with the schedule as we kind of defined it here.
You'd be considered what, a pool attendant instead of a lifeguard, which we kind of lowered the.
I mean, the regulations say pool attendant, so if there's someone that meets the qualifications of a pool attendant at the pool every time it's open, you've met the qualifications.
I have a question. Do any of these properties rent?
I'm sorry?
Do any of these homeowners rent their property?
Yes, they do.
So now what are you going to do when you leave the property and you rent it to someone, a stranger, 2 weeks or 3 weeks? You're going to make sure that they're certified?
Well, that's what the attendant is for. And so what we're going to have to do is figure out for renters that we get, first of all, this requirement means we have to get everybody on a list, right, of who's coming and who's on the property. When I say the property, there's 40 homes, right? Who's on the property. And that we would have to they'd have to register with a pool attendant so that we knew who they were. Now, the issue is if they were a renter and were not CPR trained, would that be a violation of our agreement?
If nobody's
If
at the
there's no
pool.
certified attendant present, that would be.
Right. So that in essence, what we'd have to do is we'd have to limit the access to the pool to the hours where the attendant was there for renters. Is that kind of what we're saying?
be
I'm
like-
not trying to negotiate
right.
on the fly.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out some of the nuances so when people ask me what happened, I can talk to them.
Or, if I'm understanding this correctly, if there were a CPR qualified person, whether he be an owner, a renter, or an employee present,
Right.
it would be possible for the
They'd
pool to
be
open
they'd
to
be
used
qualified. Yeah.
by anyone else.
They would
Right.
meet the definition of the regulation.
For the association, it's going to be more of like a, who's on our list and a scheduling problem.
One thing though, the maintenance of the pool does still need to be done by a CPO though. It still needs to be somebody who's a certified pool operator.
Understood.
We,
We're only talking about.
the people who do the chlorine tests, that still has to be done daily.
Supervision people who are swimming,
Exactly.
Not the sanitary.
Exactly. I
aspect.
just wanted to make sure that was still there.
Right. So you're gonna come back.
I think we have a better sense of what the expectations are.
Right.
I think that gives us good guidance. We'll discuss it, and we'll let you know whether we need to come back for any further discussion at the next meeting or not.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearing, local health regulations 65, and which one are
Yeah,
we
we
going
should
to
take
do
them one
first?
by one. We should just do 65
Okay.
because it's pretty straightforward.
That would be the easiest one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the
The
easiest
other one
one.
will be a little more difficult.
So we need to
Oh,
public hearing.
can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
So what we have before you is just the addition of an enforcement clause to local regulation 65. When we had put this regulation in place, I think almost 3 years ago now, that requires people to register the IA systems, keep the operation and maintenance agreements up to date. The enforcement clause was actually not in there. It was supposedly covered under the umbrella of Regulation 67, which was the miscellaneous provisions that allows for enforcement for Regulation 60 through 69, which is the IA regulations. But when we really kind of started digging into it, because we didn't call out the enforcement in the actual regulation, we didn't feel, what it really came down to is we wouldn't feel comfortable that those fines would hold up in court if charged. So we bring it forth again. All you'll see is at the very end, it says enforcement of these local regulations shall be effective through the Town of Nantucket Board of Health, Local Regulations 67, miscellaneous provisions, and through the Town of Nantucket Board of Health, Local Regulations 64. So it's just to allow us to enforce for operation and maintenance agreements. We're seeing this mainly because twofold. Sometimes people allow the operation and maintenance agreement to lapse, and then they'll get letters from Barnstable County, and 9 times out of 10, they didn't realize it lapsed. They sign a new agreement. It's good to go. Other times they'll let it go and let it go, let it go. And then we go to issue the fine, and then we realized, we have no authority to fine. So that's the first step. And then the other one is a lot of times they have an operation and maintenance agreement, but the operator of the system sometimes doesn't put in the information that's needed to the Barnstable County reporting form. So we end up having to track down the operator. So this also gives us the authority to find the operator. What we don't want is to fine a homeowner for something that they weren't responsible for in the first place. That's really it. It was very straightforward. It's just to allow the enforcement of this regulation. It was an oversight from about 2.5 years ago.
Any comments?
I think the Nantucket residents.
Anybody out there want to talk? Bill?
Good afternoon, Bill Greeter, co-president of Nantucket Conservation Association. This past summer, Nantucket Conservation Association and Nantucket Residents Association have combined into one organization so that we can get our correspondence together when we're researching issues and stuff affecting Nantucket. And we've been following septic regulations since 2000, 2001. And so a couple of weeks ago, I happened to notice in the paper the little ad that you put in for tonight's meeting about this article. So I didn't know what the heck it really meant. I looked at the agenda that hadn't been established yet. So I spent the last couple of weeks dealing with Art and Emily and Barnstable to find out what it was and why it was being done. And on a personal note, I then have taken 2 weeks to research my property and the records, and I know far more about the issue than I really intended to know, nor want to know, quite frankly. So the past couple of weeks, I've been sending out correspondence to over 600 Nantucket homeowners. And because there wasn't a formal notification from the Board of Health on what was going on to its clients, i.e. the homeowners, I sort of had to wing what I sent out there. And in a nutshell, I had said that the Board of Health was doing this to add some teeth to the enforcement issue. Didn't get into particular vendors or whatever, but we were strongly recommending that they check both with the local Board of Health and Emily to see if their property is compliant. I think it's imperative that the Board of Health, because the homeowner is ultimately responsible, I think it's an obligation of the Board of Health to notify the homeowners of this change in the policy. Not that the fact that they've always been the responsible party by the statute, but 90% of them don't know what that means. And now that there's enforcement abilities in this, they need to know it, because ultimately, if one of these operators isn't doing his job, and I checked them both, Septitech and Multifat and whatever, and so it's not just one particular system, and so there is no perfect vendor out there. So that needs to be established, that this is across the board. It's a policy. It's not at a particular vendor. And so I just think that it's very appropriate that the Board of Health send out notifications to let the homeowners know of the change. I just spent 45 minutes with somebody before I came in here who had no clue what was going on, wants to be compliant, doesn't know if his system is up to snuff. And so I think Emily's going to be kind of busy because I included a link on how to open up an account on the website. The downside of that website is you can only look at a small snapshot of your system. You can't go back multiple years, which is what I wanted to do. I was one of the first IAs out there in the new regime since 2006, and I wanted to be able to see a track record of what was going on because I got to cancel checks, and I wanted to know what was going on. That the system doesn't have that ability, so it's going to. If people are half as diligent as I've been, there's going to be a lot of requests for PDF files, just because the system is not capable of reaching back like that. So that was my input on Article 65, and just while I was here, I was looking for a point of clarification on 51, which rolls into effect April 16th, which is the mandatory IA systems. And so we've included that in the documentation, along with the copies of what the policies are, and highlighted different criteria in there in bold, so hopefully folks get it. But one question that's come up in the verbiage of 51, it's a little confusing as far as the area of enforcement. In the beginning of it lists some street boundaries, but then it constantly refers to the Nantucket Harbor Watershed Protection District.
Yeah.
And so while streets that were listed, Fisher's Landing is not in there, it certainly is within the district.
Yeah, it's in it.
So the question would be, is Fisher's Landing going to be under this 51?
Yes.
That being said, I can absolutely tell you that none of them know that because I was talking with their president today. I'm forwarding all the information to her so she can get it out there. But there's going to be a ton of residents there that have no clue what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another need to get the word out there. The more information you get out there, the more believable and viable your policies become. And lack of that leaves nothing but suspect disbelief and lack of folks being compliant.
Right. Well, the Nantucket Harbor watershed consists of Zone A and Zone B. So anybody that's inside that, system, that if you're on the line, the system has to be definitely inside the defined watershed.
I thought so, but I'm just an old guy in the creek, so it needs to come from you folks on what that really entails.
Yeah, no, Bill is absolutely right. We did remove the road boundaries at the public hearing, but now that I just logged into the website to look to see what it is that's listed, those road boundaries are still in there. So I'll just make sure that the correct version is uploaded.
Well, would you send a notice to me so I can send that updated version? Because I'm
Will do.
sending out the wrong version.
Yeah, I just saw that the old version is updated. I thought that the website was updated, but it doesn't look like it was. So I'll make sure that gets on there tomorrow.
Thank you.
And then as far as notifying potential, IA people is that something that we would mail to them, or is that with this revision of the regulation?
We can definitely look into doing a mass mailing. It's possible.
Well, I know you got 116 IA systems in Nantucket,
Already
so
in there. So we can subtract that from the list.
I think by default, those 116 people need to know that regardless of who they pick as a maintenance provider, they are ultimately responsible, and they need to understand that.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah. And Bill, also just as for clarification, the intention of the enforcement is that if if they have a current operation and maintenance agreement, which has always been required, and the operator isn't performing to standard, the homeowner will not be punished for that. That is not the homeowner's fault. So we want to make that abundantly clear. The homeowner will not be punished for the operators not doing the work.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from the board? Anybody out there?
I can move, we close the public hearing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Public hearing is closed. Can I get a motion to accept the amendments to Regulation 65 as written?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. All right, so let's move to,
Okay, 76.
yes, so regulation 76. Oh, we have to.
Oh, can I get a motion to open the public hearing on Regulation 76? Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing's open.
Yes, so we're looking to update the rules and regulations on Regulation 76. The ones we have are particularly old. It never actually defined some terms that it uses. Enforceability is also an issue on our end, and it's generally outdated. So working with DPW, we have been looking to update that regulation to mirror closer to the state regulation, the state model regulation. So more than anything, this is the proposal that we have. It was also reviewed by town council. This is the final version that was sent to us through town council, and also it's significant, the amount of changes, and I know the waste haulers also have a series of questions that were emailed to us last night, and we're looking to just hear the arguments. This is a public hearing. This is the draft regulations as they stand, but it is always up to the board on their pleasure, on whether they want to accept or deny or alter it or go anywhere from there. So I believe if you guys want to do any talking, or okay, then I think we're open to.
Yeah. Anybody want to start?
Yes.
Okay, Charlie.
Yeah, for the record, my name is Charlie O'Neill. I'm the operations manager at P&M Reese Trucking. The comments that we sent out to you last night and were up in the back were a joint effort between and among all the principals in the two companies and myself. Very important issues, affect every business, every homeowner. I know the meeting's being videoed and audioed, and for the benefit of people who might want to see this, and with your indulgence, I'd just like to read through this for you.
Sure.
So, starts out by saying that P&M Reese Trucking and Santos Rubbish Removal, the two largest trash haulers operating in the island, express our strenuous objection to the draft hauler regulations and hauler permit application being considered at today's public hearing. For the following reasons. In spite of our two companies having more than 100 years of combined hands-on experience in collecting and disposing of all manner of waste on the island, and accounting for 75% of the trash and recycling delivered to the landfill, we were not included in the formulation of the new proposed program of waste separation. We were only consulted, in quotes, after the new program had been fully formulated by two individuals entirely unfamiliar with the unique nature of how household waste is stored at individual homes and businesses, how the systems of waste collection and hauling have evolved here, or the challenges that come with the patterns of residential development on Nantucket and our highly transient summer population. The two attached emails document our attempts to bring our combined experience into the conversation and our frustration with the, quote, our way or the highway non-response to our constructive comments and criticisms. suggestions. The Select Board has established a strategic objective of achieving environmental leadership. What we are doing now with our waste and the changes inherent in these new plans, in our view, do not move the town closer to environmental leadership. We are landfilling bales of non-compostable waste that will never decompose on a site very near Long Pond and potentially threatened by future sea level rise. This makes no sense to us when these bales could be shipped off island now at a cost lower than we now pay to transport and dispose of our C&D waste. This would immediately achieve one of the stated goals of the new program, to reduce landfill use to zero as soon as practical. We have repeatedly suggested sending the bales of compost residuals off island for disposal. This type of material is not recyclable or reusable and is appropriate for disposal at a location more suited for long-term disposal, such as an appropriate site in Ohio. Ohio, by way of side note, welcomes this kind of waste. They apparently have some geologic formations that don't leach, and a great quantity of waste is being sent out there right now. Much more appropriate than landfilling it near Long Pond. We have repeatedly been told this material can't be shipped by rail and that disposing it off island is not feasible or cost effective. But there has been no serious effort by the town to evaluate this option. Our recent ad hoc efforts indicate that the bales could be trucked to Ohio at a lower cost than the town currently pays to transport and dispose of C&D debris. Separation of these non-recyclable, non-compostables, NERNICs, at the outlet of the digester is done by machines that are currently operated at the landfill, and we believe it is far more effective and prudent to continue using this method of sorting rather than asking every household and business on Nantucket, including summer renters, to understand what NERNICs are and separate them from the compostable waste. The new program seeks to separate out non-compostable, non-recyclables from the waste stream in order to improve compost quality, with the goal that more of it will be used on the island. While we continue to build new sewers out of a concern for nitrogen entering the environment from septic systems, this compost includes every bit of solid waste from every toilet and every septic system on the island, the sewage sludge, and consequently has a very high nitrogen content without the capacity for the time released available in today's modern fertilizer. Does distributing and spreading this material island-wide, including the wellhead recharge area, contribute to environmental leadership? We think not. The compost pile at the landfill site is the single largest and most concentrated source of nitrogen on the island. No analysis of the market for compost on the island has been performed, even though at the first Waste Summit, the consultant, George Erickson, said that needed to be done to see if there really is a market for the compost, the type and the volume of compost we produce. It hasn't been done. Even if the NERNICs currently entering the district could be completely eliminated, which is, as a practical matter, is not achievable, it's simply not reasonable to project that this material can be made commercially and aesthetically attractive given its content of human waste, and seeking to make it a pure product is an exercise in futility and constitutes nothing more than an environmental red herring. We can all agree that recycling and reuse of our waste materials to the greatest extent possible supports environmental leadership. 80 to 85% of construction and demolition debris delivered to permitted processing facilities in Massachusetts and regional and neighboring states is recycled or reused. Much of the material recovery process involves people on sorting lines hand sorting the C&D debris. The new program involves diverting such things as soiled diapers, styrofoam trays, and absorbent liners in packages of chicken parts and other similar food products, together with other NERNICs, into our C&D stream, all of which would have to be separated out again by hand at a processing facility. Including these materials in our C&D stream and allowing them to fester in the heat of the summer makes the process of material reuse and recycling less efficient, more onerous, and represents significant health risks for the personnel involved in the process. Presently, the town sends its C&D debris to a facility that simply crushes and loads it into rail cars for disposal in landfills in Ohio with virtually no material recovery. Does this practice support the goal of achieving environmental leadership? We believe it is disingenuous to continue this practice while promoting a strategic objective of achieving environmental leadership. The concept of Nernix as a separated waste stream is unfamiliar and confusing to most people. Visitors and renters will have had no exposure to this concept at home, and during the week or two that they stay here cannot reasonably be expected to comply to any significant degree. Couple that with the numerous weddings, festivals, and other special events that generate large volumes of trash produced largely by short-term visitors, and a reasonable person will begin to understand the challenges facing haulers who would be expected to educate and enforce the proposed separation protocol under the threat of monetary fines. Can you imagine us trying to solve this problem at Boston Pops, or at the dock at Fagawi, or during the wine festival, or during the hundreds of weddings, sometimes with hundreds of attendants in place, and being expected to deliver all that waste separated into components that nobody really understands? The cost of trash hauling will increase. We currently have 4 separate piles of waste in the back of every open truck and we have to hand unload the bagged glass, the bagged plastic, aluminum, and tin, and the cardboard, all in different locations at the landfill, before dumping the final waste stream, which is now called Municipal Solid Waste, MSW, from the truck mechanically. The proposed separation protocol will create yet another pile to create in each truck and another hand unloading operation. Homeowners with bins for their trash barrels will now need another barrel for Nernix. Commercial businesses now are served by 3 separate trucks, one for MSW, one for cardboard, and one for recycles. Nernix cannot be mixed with any of the other waste streams in any of those trucks and will require additional storage and an additional truck with a driver and a helper to collect the Nernix stream. Every business would have to comply with this. The draft regulation indicates that haulers must identify all customers with non-conforming bags of trash, leave the non-conforming bags, and report the non-conforming customers to the DPW, who will, where possible, follow up to enforce the separation rule. Issues with these provisions are: 1, based on our years of experience with education and enforcement of basic recycling protocols. We've been doing this for like 20 years. We are certain that there will be hundreds of non-compliant customers reported per day and many more bags of waste left uncollected. Will the DPW be staffed to perform enforcement in a timely way? The draft regulation says there will be follow-up, but the draft permit application is non-committal. It says if it's possible. What happens if the DPW can't follow up? Bags of garbage that may include leftover lobster, fish, chicken, etc., but may have a few plastic bottles or aluminum cans visible in the bag, must be left to cook in July and August. On Nantucket, as waste is not stored in the type of large rolling plastic containers one might see in a mainland city, but instead is in a wooden bin or under someone's porch and may or may not be bagged. In barrels, sorry. Leaving these bags uncollected will invite rodents and lead to infestations by maggots, creating public health concerns. There is no thought as to how these bags left behind will ultimately be dealt with. Does someone pick them up after some fixed period of time? On Nantucket, hauler employees must move each bag by hand, and leaving bags to fester for later makes a difficult job even more onerous? Is it envisioned that the customer, who may be a renter paying a premium rate, will sort them? Will we expect the homeowner, who may be living off island, to sort them? Perhaps the real estate agent who arranges the renters will do it. We will not be asking our drivers to break into those contaminated bags to sort out offending items. Over the years, attempts to enforce other separation and disposal rules have been abandoned or modified to avoid people simply disposing of items such as pallets, tires on rims, appliances on our conservation lands. Or any of you who have lived here for a while remember those things. Do we not learn from our past experiences? The draft permit application contains provisions for haulers to report on types of waste and generator types, residential or commercial, on an annual basis, but the only source for this information is the scale at the landfill itself, which information is reported directly to the DPW. There is currently no requirement for the landfill to collect a report on all the types of waste at this level of detail, and therefore the haulers have no way of reporting on it either. Requiring hauler vehicles to go over the scale, the one scale at the dump, by the way, multiple times is not an option, as each transit, particularly in summer months, puts our trucks in line with cars and pickups of citizens dropping off waste, creating unreasonable and unacceptable impact on our ability to complete our pickups in time for the 3 p.m. closing of the landfill. I can assure you, our people work very hard in the summer months, and it's not an easy job to do. And trying to get it all done by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, even with the current protocols, is a tall order. So trying to do this additionally is really not a reasonable thing. The personnel at the landfill have been doing face-to-face educating and enforcing of the new separation protocols at the citizen drop-off for about a year. It's reasonable to assume, and we are confident, that an unbiased sampling of bags at the compostable and Nantucket containers at the citizen drop-off would show that many, perhaps most bags contain cross-contamination to some degree. We don't have the luxury of having face-to-face contact with our customers to educate or enforce, as they are generally not at home when we collect the trash, and yet the draft regulation requires us to enforce by leaving bags with any visible contamination. This is not reasonable. I wonder when a citizen walks up to the citizen drop-off and the attendants see a couple of recycled bottles in a bag of what's supposed to be compostable, do they send them home? I don't think so. I think if we look in those containers and make reasonable sampling, we're going to find that those bags aren't perfect. But this is requiring us to enforce, essentially, perfection on all of our customers. It's simply not reasonable, not doable. It's our belief the current proposed changes represent a well-intentioned but uninformed and misguided effort to move toward the goal of achieving environmental leadership. They are the result of a perceived urgent need to change something, even if it's the wrong thing. It's clear to us that the proposed program will add complexity and cost to all residential and commercial customers without delivering meaningful benefits. A more reasoned approach must be developed with the direct involvement of the haulers, the DPW, the Board of Health, and the Select Board. This is not a trivial matter and should not be allowed to move forward without the direct involvement of these key players and boards, and perhaps even the voters at a future town meeting. These matters should not be decided behind closed doors and out of the public eye. We are available, and we believe we have much to contribute. Clearly, something must be done to address waste issues on Nantucket before the current contract with Waste Options expires. The issues of how we as a society and as a community deal with the complex questions of how to limit what we waste and how best to deal with the waste we produce concern us all. Our energy should be focused on finding a long-term solution for waste management on Nantucket that make practical and commercial sense and avoid the temptation to embrace futile tweaks that only create confusion, frustration, and cost without providing meaningful benefit. We look to the Board of Health as an independent body with members having both scientific and practical working knowledge of public health and environmental issues on Nantucket to finally give a fair hearing and unbiased evaluation of the concerns of the haulers on these important matters. We therefore request that the Board of Health take no action on the draft hauler regulation or draft permit application until these matters can be considered openly, thoroughly, and publicly as they affect every household and business on Nantucket. But I would just note, most of this, we're really, as haulers, we could have simply said, this is a great business opportunity for us. We get to launch more trucks. We can just wash our hands of the bags, the contaminated bags. It could be a big business opportunity for us. Most businesses, their costs might go up by 25% because right now we send 3 trucks, actually 33%. We now have 3 trucks. Now we're going to send 4 trucks. It doesn't make sense for the island. It does not make any sense at all in our view. So please, let's not approve these things hastily. Let's have a really true collaboration with all the players involved so we can come to a reasonable solution.
Thanks. Rob?
Thank you to the board for my time. Rob McNeil, DPW Director, and thank you, Charlie, and the others who contributed to that. I'll start by saying it is by Chapter 125, Section 2, that the DPW's responsibilities are spelled out with regard to getting involved and taking charge of making recommendations for the waste streams. The select board's strategic goals have clearly laid out the environmental leadership goals. Goal number 1 is having to do with data-driven decision-making. For the last year and a half, we have been working together with the select board, with the haulers, and with the public to pull these together. There's 4 pages of suggested regulations here, and it's taken 11 pages of comments to get at this from the haulers that Charlie just read through. And one of the things that jumped out at me was this note about urgency. I would say there certainly hasn't been any urgency on behalf of Public Works or the Board of the Health Department. These have been well thought through. We've gotten feedback and input from various parties, including the haulers, right along the way. We've had several sessions with Select Board. We've had recently in 2019, from July through December, once a month, 6 months of continuous, we called it the Waste Summit, an opening session and a summary session with specialized looks at every different facet of solid waste along the island, from haulers, situations and issues, to hazardous waste, to landfill issues, right along the way, with some pretty well-attended sessions. And the haulers were at, I think, every single session. So to characterize this as urgent and something that has not been thought through or is being sent through with some high urgency, I think is a mischaracterization. With that, simply stated, the town is looking to get on board with the state's regulations with regard to their model regulations, which simply is focused on providing a bundled service for solid waste and recyclable programs. What happened in the past was when recycling came on, many communities simply said, well, recycling's this new thing, and Hollers said, hey, it's all new to us. It's rather difficult to incorporate, so it's an extra expense. And adding an extra expense to something that was beneficial, which is this original recycling programs around the state, ended with an extra fee. So it was because it was not a bundled service, it was a disincentive to participate in recycling. Over the years, the state has, through their solid waste master plan, through investigations and their own data-driven decision-making, has promulgated these model regulations that say bundled service helps encourage recycling participation and takes a look really at reduction. One thing that was interesting to me, Charlie spoke about 100 years of combined experience. That's fantastic and much appreciated. A lot of the lessons that we've learned from them, both at the table at DPW and in other meetings we've held at other locations, including our own solid waste recycling coordinator, who's done ride-along with Reese's trucks to take a look at what they face, what their drivers face every day, to get feedback and actually see what they do, some of the challenges that they see at some of their residents. Charlie provided a nice video that showed some of the challenges. So we recognize some of that. And we have been mostly focused on our own facility. We recognize that 75% of the island's waste is trucked to our facility by private haulers. So there's a substantial concern. We understand the benefit. It keeps a lot of traffic off the roads. People not coming out to our facility to drop off. It's delivered by haulers. That's certainly a benefit, particularly when it's very busy here. However, the method that they're currently delivering to us turns into a very, very labor-intensive situation when they're dropping off combined recyclables, as a for instance. Our recyclable program that's run through the Waste Options MRF building, the Materials Recovery Facility, is a hand-sorting, belt-fed system. Currently, the haulers are delivering recyclables combined tin and aluminum with plastic in plastic bags. And those bags have to be manually separated, manually opened, put out onto a table, and manually sorted. We're working right now with support of the Select Board to develop a colored bag program, a pilot program that's going to ultimately allow or require customers to put each individual waste stream into an individually colored bag. Make it simple for sorting. There's some of the concerns that have been raised. We're listening and developing systems that are currently used in other places off island to get at that. How do we achieve these separated streams better? Provide them with individual colored bags. So we're getting at that. That can all be lumped in one truck, just like they're doing now. There's been sort of this idea that changing any kind of a stream is going to create some kind of magically new volume. It's no new volume. It's the same volume you create every week. It's just how they're collecting it and storing it in their stake body vehicles. So colored bag system helps visually the drivers deliver it properly to our site. And the feedback we've gotten so far from the haulers who have participated in our meetings has been positive. So we're excited to be able to work together, continue to work together to roll this out. These regulations here essentially look to capitalize on the model regulations set forth by the state in support of their own solid waste master plan. And that's basically it. There's been a lot of other talk about what we should be doing, what we could be doing. If we want to get into the weeds on that, I'm happy to participate there. But I would say that that's basically where we're coming from.
For the record, Miles Reese. I just want to talk a little bit about, I think I've been at most of the meetings, basically all the meetings, and I feel that what Rob is saying that we're all in agreement with, and you've taken and listened to what we have to say. I don't think you've listened to anything we've had to say. You've instructed us. You've instructed us that the bales couldn't be moved. The steamship wouldn't take them. The rail place where you deliver your C&D wouldn't take them. When in fact, totally untrue. Charlie, through his initiative, sent you a packet with the steamship authority's rates. I've explained to you that on the Vineyard, 100% of the C&D, 100% of the MSW and recycling go on the steamship vessels that come to Nantucket. You never responded to us about that. Our analysis is, with what you're doing with the Nantucket right now, I believe you're costing the taxpayers in Nantucket roughly $445 a ton. Our analysis shows that the bundles could be taken off island and disposed of for a total cost of around $150 a ton. You have Tremel screens out there that you're using, and maybe we need to do a better job of running it through the screen twice so there isn't so much residual compost material that would certainly cut down on the weight. Could Nantucket do a better job of keeping recycled plastic out of the MSW? I'm sure we could. But we have in place right now, and have been, taking the Nantucket and doing a pretty good job of taking it out of the waste stream. And it can be done mechanically, not for more money with a hands-on type of situation that you're talking about. One of the problems with a bundled service is that you'd have to have a lot of different price structures, which all of a sudden becomes not bundled again. Because you have a couple that lives here year-round and is too old or doesn't want to go to the landfill, and you charge them X. And you have a house that you take more recycles away from than you do trash. It's pretty hard to just say one fee for a bundled service works on Nantucket, because it really doesn't. I mean, I think what the state is saying right now, that if we are in compliance, if we have no more than 10% of recyclable in the waste stream, I don't think we ever hit 10%. We're always a lot better than that. Right now, can it be better? Yes, it can. I just think, neighboring towns like Dennis, you can put everything in one barrel and put it out on the side of the road and they'll pick it up and take it away. So I think we're doing a pretty good job. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
A couple points there. Apologize, Miles. We did not get back to you sooner than tonight. To try to get a meeting with the steamship has taken some time, and we met with them a couple weeks ago. So steamship has made it very clear to us that we are not Martha's Vineyard. We do not have anywhere near the capacity on our boat systems that the Vineyard does. And we were told, quite frankly, that the steamship does not have capacity for us to be able to take off our waste as has been laid out by Miles. So while, yes, there is pricing structures, yes, there are systems in place that the Vineyard has taken advantage of through the years, and that same system could be used. Logistically, there is not space on the current boat systems to handle that. So that has been looked at. It certainly would not be a cost savings. And there's, again, getting into the weeds of how our system currently works. We're talking about contaminating a waste stream and then trying to clean it up on the other end, and expecting to try to limit our landfill use on that side. I think what we're trying to get at is removing the contamination from the stream before it goes through the composter, so that on the other end there's little or no contaminants to then landfill. What we've successfully been able to achieve a 10% reduction so far in 1 year. With the support of the select board back in February of 19, we started this separation of Nurnik from the compostable, which was originally all together as household. In 1 year, we've shown a 10% reduction in the Nurnik. That's fantastic. And that's not because we've done it alone. We've done lots of outreach and education, and the haulers have done the same. Somewhat reluctantly, but we've been working together, we've been meeting, and I think this is, we're making strides in the right direction. Another note, as far as the vineyard goes, they are making a huge shift towards composting, both commercial and towards residential now, not because it's easy, because they're saving money.
Yep.
Rob, just to make sure that we both understand each other, as far as the Nurnik, as far as the bundles, I currently have an awful lot of reservations on the boat. I currently haul as much C&D as the landfill does, and if you'd like to contract with me at half the rate that your C&D is costing you, I'll gladly take care of the Nurniks and the plastic. And you can do it cheaper.
Anybody else? Any comments?
I just, again, to go back to one point, it sort of bothers me is I have this vision of these bags all over the island not picked up. It seems to me, it just bothers me. I can see garbage all over the island, particularly in the summertime when, despite all our educational efforts, I mean, we educate people about ticks and we still have Lyme disease. We educate people about fertilizer and we still have people breaking the rules. How are we going to do it with a bunch of people who don't even know the island? And it's pointed out, are these who's going to go back and get these bags?
Sure. No, it's a great point. So I don't think it's something that is something we're going to jump right into and starting tomorrow, we're no longer picking up that mess. It's taken us 2 years now to get to a point where, as an example, from the time we started with really taking a look at gathering data from our municipal receptacles around the core, for instance, going from a number of single cans or clusters of 3 to what you see out there today, 4 bundled cans, properly labeled with colored lids that are now policed on a regular basis. We open up illegal dumping, and we now notice, and we're sending out fines now. That's taken us 2 years to get that program in place. So what I'm saying is regulations allow the municipality to act, and to promulgate that is going to take time. So there's programs in here that talk about oops notices, and that doesn't have to be on the bag. That can be on the door, or that can be notifying. We've gotten feedback from the haulers about how they do it currently. they don't just take it and walk away. They notice and they call their customers, and they do it very frequently. So this is not new, and it's not new news to them. They already have programs in place that they've educated us about. So we've taken those that feedback and input, and we've incorporated that into this. Again, this is a partnership, recognizing that there's a major value in having 75% of the island's waste delivered to us. We want to work together and get this program matured to a point where we're able to do this. As an example, that was pointed out about the renters, as an example. Obviously, there's a high-end rental market. The renters that we've met, the rental organizations, the leaders of the rental organizations that we've met with said, we have deposits, we have fining mechanisms, and we have people that will actually go out and do sorting to deliver it properly if it is turned
I was
away.
going to say, you mean the realtors are going to come back and sort the bags?
The realtors have folks that do that, yes. So, and they've told us that.
I mean, can you say if we implement these, can you delay fining the haulers until we see how many bags we have floating around the island? I mean, that still, I know everybody means well on both sides, but I don't know how that's going to work.
Sure.
Of actually having them separate or not take the bags that are contaminated.
Well, I think a fair amount of this is data reporting, right? If they're picking up and they can report to us that they had a run today that had several violations and that they noticed their customers of those violations, that's fantastic news. That's stuff that we can take action on, and it's information that we gather and we start to see where we have ways to improve. We're not talking about having people self-report so we can ticket them. That's just not a system that we're interested in getting involved
Are you
in.
going to ticket them?
I don't think we're in a place right now where we're talking about ticketing, no.
You say it's a partnership between the DPW and the waste haulers, but to me, it seems like a partnership that don't agree with each other. And there's a lot of space between one group and the other. And I honestly think there's a lot of things that have to be worked out before I would even consider voting for something like this.
I mean, I have a sense in many ways you actually may be talking about the same thing but not communicating very well. I don't know. Someone wanted to respond? Or?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, I think the way that it's laid out here, Mr. Cooper, as far as the partnership, it's very clear about what the expectations are in the actual proposed regulations. Basically, we're talking about having the haulers and the town have higher expectations of the customers, both the people that are dropping things off at our facility and things that are being picked up by the haulers on behalf of the town through the permits program and delivered to us.
But then at the same time, you're putting a lot of pressure on these people. Like you said, instead of sending 3 trucks, they have to send 4 trucks.
But that's not the case.
Pardon me?
It's not the case.
So how would you know that? You're not in the business. This is exactly the kind of non-listening that we've been dealing with all along.
Yeah.
I just think there's too great a distance between both groups here for me, in good conscience, to vote on anything like this tonight.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. There's a lot of issues to be worked out. It sounds like to me it's going to be a nightmare.
Well, I think
Charlie was quoted as saying it's impossible, actually, when we first started this. And then about a year later, he said it would be difficult to implement. But he came away from impossible. So I told him at the time, it's great. We've made progress. As far as the pricing structures go and how they're going to run their business, that's not something that the town is interested in getting involved with. It's not our purview. Bundled service is bundled service. It's basic service. if there's additional burden on the haulers based on what their customers providing them, that's entirely up to them to figure out how to bill them properly above the basic service. That's, again, not something that the town's interested in getting involved with. It's simply just we want to make sure that everyone is offered the same opportunity to participate in recyclables and the solid wastes program.
Well, I just think the problem is everybody's problem in Nantucket, not just this board or the DPW. I think the Board of Selectmen need to be, I think there needs to be a gathering of a certain group of people on the island that are responsible for this whole thing. And I just think there's too much of a separation between these two groups right now.
And I also feel it's a big decision on changing a regulation with so many impacts in February, when obviously there's nobody here. There's no townspeople, inhabitants here. This is it's going to be a big change. And I'm out there, and I'm at a lot of people's yards, and I mean, we're talking thousands of customers out there. Not just the people that are living here year round. This population jumps up to, 60,000 people in the summer. And if you think they're going to do all that, and it's not going to happen. The brokers aren't going to go there. They ain't going to send anybody to separate it. It's going to be a struggle.
So I'm curious, Mr. Chairman, what exactly do you feel the change is going to be felt at the household level, for instance, that hasn't already been implemented last February?
Just the sheer separation in the bags and these guys having to leave it there.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that right now we're going to work with everybody so that they're not leaving bags behind.
That's not what the regulation says. The regulation says we are required to leave any bag that has visible contamination in it. That's what the words say, Bob.
That's right.
So that shouldn't be in that regulation. This is not a regulation that needs to be approved.
Can you come up to the microphone if you?
Yeah, there's regulations and then there's right now, as Graham pointed out, there's requirements in the regulations right now that are not being followed, reporting requirements. So there's flexibility, and I think that's the whole point here.
But as pointed out, a regulation is a regulation. Again, it's come back to this bag issue. I'm sure it's the hauler's responsibility. Maybe you bring all the contaminated bags to the landfill and put them in a pile and have someone else go through them. I don't know. That's what I'm just uncomfortable with that.
Well, I think that the point is that the contaminated bags, like anything else, if they come into our facility, they're handled. We take them and we deal with it. We're not turning people away. The idea of materials getting tossed out into conservation properties is still being used today, and we don't find that people are not dumping residential trash in the moors.
So the contaminated bags could come to the landfill again. I mean,
they would.
I'm not sure this has been totally worked out. I mean, I like the idea. We need to do something better, but I'm concerned the way the regulation is written about that particular aspect.
Okay.
So some of the big problems that I see is the recycling center that we'll go out there with an open truck, and we will drop off bags of commingled plastic and tin, and in a different location we'll take care of the glass. You want them separated. in the price structure that the town has already signed up with Waste Options, they're paying to do a particular job. You want to change it to give them a break? We don't need to do it. They can sort it. That's what they've been doing. They can continue to do it under the current price structure. The big problem is the Nurnick. And if everybody was a little bit more conscious about the recycled plastic that went into the MSW, and that was taken out, and the rest of it was baled, which would be a heck of a lot less, would solve a lot of problems, and you might at least get my mind to be more online with what you'd like to do.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to one of the statements that Rob was making about the way that we currently deal with recycling and mixing of recycling with trash. And he was right about part of it, which is that we do make efforts. We call our customers. We go and visit them. I do that myself sometimes. My drivers try to educate. We leave notes. But we do not leave bags that contain garbage if they have recycles in them. We just don't do it. It doesn't make sense. We're part of the public health program here. That's part of our job. And what this regulation says is, just as I said, and you've read it, you know it. It's easy to say, well, we want to cooperate and it's a collaborative venture, but that regulation says we must leave behind every bag that has any visible contamination in it. That's what it says. And it says that we're going to be fined if we deliver bags that way. So let's not try to minimize the onerous nature of the teeth that have been written into this thing, and not by mistake, I believe, that this is a power play to try to just squeeze the haulers to do what could be done and is being done.
Well, I'm not sure. I wouldn't.
That's what it is.
Well, I wouldn't use those words. Yeah. Please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill Greeter, private hauler. I don't have the business these folks do. Bill Greeter, renter, realtor. So I only have one unit. I inform my renters of the policy for recycling on Nantucket, which I got to say is extremely confusing because as it's tweaked, things change. And so you tell people one thing, you put up signs, and then the policy changes. So it's a never-ending battle to keep up with what's current. And I have renters that are very diligent, and I have others that couldn't give a hoot less. But the thing that really concerns me about this discussion is there's the statement, well, there's parts in the bylaw or there's parts in the policy, and we're not enforcing them now. One of the issues that I've had the multiple times I've come, not just to this board, but other boards, is if there's a regulation and there's enforcement stuff in there within the policy, then it should be enforced. And so if the enforcement isn't ready, then I wouldn't think that it should be in the proposal or in the adopted policy when it is adopted. One would think that as it needs to be tweaked, just like you're doing with 65, you find there's an issue, you go back and you redefine that and put it in there then. But it's kind of ludicrous and lacks of credibility when you have something in there and not enforcing the whole thing. The residents don't get to pick and choose what part of the policy they're going to follow. Quite frankly, the government shouldn't be able to pick and choose what it is it's going to enforce in any of the laws. And I'm not running for public office. So.
Thank you.
I hear there's not many this year. You have an opportunity.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm just a simple homeowner, and I take my trash to the dump whenever it needs to be taken. And I was all in a fluster when I saw the regulations at first, because I thought, oh, this is going to be so confusing. This is going to be so difficult. It's not difficult. You understand the regulations. You set up your little boxes, what you need in your kitchen. And after you do it the first couple of times, it's very simple. You have the boxes there, you put the right thing in the right box, and then you have a way to transfer it into the car. You take it to the dump, and you put them in the right places. And I have stopped and talked to the people who monitor the dump. And at first, they really said, oh, people are horrible. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. They don't know what to do. I just talked to a person a couple of weeks ago. She said, they're getting a lot better. They're understanding, and we're not getting, they'd say they'd speak to someone and educate them when they saw them doing something stupid. So I understand the hauler's point of view, that it's because your problem is so much larger than an individual. The only thing that troubled me when you were speaking was that all I heard was, and maybe I didn't hear you say this, I was hoping that I would hear the haulers come in and say, we have some solutions that you haven't thought of and would like you to take those into consideration, take them under consideration. You have a lot of expertise. And the biggest thing I hear would be the biggest problem would be the renters. I don't think your regular homeowners, even if they're renters who are renting year-round, would be not able to do this. It is not a big deal. But renters who are here on a weekly or 2-week thing, then those people are the ones that I can see that would need help. But I would say, someone was saying get together and talk. Do you have some solutions other than just bring it to the dump, you can do it? You guys are doing it now, so why don't you continue to do it? Because I'm not sure why that doesn't necessarily work. I know it costs the taxpayers money to have them do it. So either the labor is yours and you pass it along to your customers, or the labor is ours and it's passed into our taxes. So I'd like to hear that from each side, that let's look for solutions. Let's not say, oh, we can't do it, we can't do it. Because what's the alternative? And you have the expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Tobias. Okay.
Well, I think she just made a good point of why we should maybe table the approval of these regulations to a different time.
Hi, I'm Patty Santos, and I'm part of Santos Rubbish. I think you misunderstood. Charlie made a great big point about what's being done and what we could do better. That's kind of what the whole thing was, and I think that concerns the issue of the Nernix. We're all happy we've done recycling as it's been done for the past 17 years with glass, plastic, aluminum, tins. And everybody's improving tremendously. We know improvement comes with time and education. Adding the Nernix is what we're, I think, talking about more than anything. It's very hard to educate people, whether they're here year-round or seasonally, on adding that other concept to it. Like I said, I think we're happy. We work with our people very much, tell them what to do and how to do it, but you can only lead the horse to water. And I think that's the problem. And adding the Nernix, which could be handled another way entirely and cost the town less money, is, I think, one of our major points. We're more than happy doing the things we're doing: glass, plastic, aluminum, tin, cardboard. That seems to be going along well. Every year it improves. Yes, there's people that are not going to do it no matter what, but it's going in the right direction, and we're not anti any of this. I just want to make that clear. Well, except the bundling, I think. I honestly don't understand what you mean by bundling. This gentleman said, "Oh, I can only do the bundles." I think that's providing one service. You can't provide Mrs. Jones, who exactly has one bag a week, the same as somebody else that's using 12 people to 20 people in their house for 1 week. I can't price it out the same. And that is my problem. It's not your problem, but we know that.
Thanks.
I think, like I said, Charlie's point is the Nernix situation that could be done more
Mr.
feasibly.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I think we've heard, I'm not sure we're going to hear any more information. So I would move, we close the public hearing, or not close the public hearing. We might continue it. Is that?
That's
To next meeting or to a specific date?
I will not be here in March, so you'll have to deal without my wisdom, whatever that is.
I'd say, not just in a month, but maybe a couple. April.
We can even continue it to, we can continue to a date certain, or if you would like to hold a special meeting for just this public hearing, that can be done as well.
Do we have a recommendation that we could make? Because I don't see anything changing between now and the next meeting.
I agree.
So, I mean, I think if we could either put I hate to use the word, but a small workforce together. Just, I mean, there are sections of the regulations that clearly there's an impasse and need to be worked on. But I think before we try and have to vote on this, we need to see if we can come up with compromise and solution before it comes back.
And we have to get these groups together because, they depend on each other. And right now.
Yeah. But each group has said they've got together, but they clearly aren't together.
And right now, they don't agree with each other, and
Well, they may never agree to each other.
no, I know.
In fact,
we got to get them
We have
closer.
to try.
I doubt they'll ever agree.
We got to get them closer, as far as I'm concerned.
So
There's two options. We can continue the hearing to a date certain, or we can close the hearing pending a agreement, and then we re-advertise for a new public hearing at a future date.
I mean, April is going to be, we have the Nantucket IA thing,
that's the
Yes.
which probably will take a while.
It will. It will.
Why can't we keep the public meeting open? Hopefully, those two sides, and maybe someone from somewhere else, the Board of Selectmen or a group of people could sit down and come together. I think that's what has to happen.
keep make a motion to keep the meeting open.
Okay.
To
But we'd have to have a specific date.
Well, what we can do is it can be tabled with indefinitely, but when we do decide a date, it has to be re-advertised.
That's what I mean.
As a continuation. It doesn't have to, it's not the 3-week requirement for a re-advertisement.
I mean, if everyone thinks they can go back to this by March, there's no reason to. I just think April we'll have enough
April will be pretty
discussion
rough. Yeah.
on April.
Yeah, the next meeting is March 19th. And if there's no, if the impasse is still present, we can still table it again.
Yeah, I would just my advice would be to keep the hearing open, put it back on the agenda for March, and if nothing's changed, then either vote one way or the other, or continue. Because I have a sense my sense is this could drag out for a long time. So we need to get to a point.
I think you need to put it off until April. I think in order for me to be part of it, there needs to be at a subcommittee or whatever you want to call it between now and when it comes back before this board, you need to have at least one body from the Board of Health and at least one body from the Select Board for me to be interested in participating, because I will tell you that Rob and I, evidently we don't agree on anything, because he does not listen to anything I have to say, and I guess I don't listen to anything he has to say. We need more people involved to see really what's happening and really who has the figures to show and to support why it should be done a certain way.
Well, wait a second. The regulations aren't talking about a certain way. I mean, all your concepts about shipping things off island are not in the regulations.
No, but
So to me, that's a long-term discussion I mean, we have to deal with the regulations now. And as I pointed out, at least from my personal view, I just have this problem of putting leaving the bags the responsibility of the haulers. But as far as bundling and going off island, that's not for this regulation. That's a long-term issue. So arguing about the finances on the steamship is not going to help this at all.
It might help the average taxpayer in Nantucket when they really realized what's being suggested compared to what could happen.
Well, that's long-term. This is the regulations now.
So, in the interest of time, there's a meeting here at 6 o'clock.
Make a decision.
What we can do is considering there's significant discussions that need to happen, we could even table it till May.
May. That's what I was thinking.
Let's table it to May, and I think that's too long, but.
Well, it comes pretty fast.
Yeah,
You'll be-
21st.
Yeah.
Till May?
Yes.
I predict we're not going to get much.
It's the end of February now.
I'm
so-
sorry.
Yeah.
But we'll go. We'll see what happens.
So
I would just appreciate if the two sides could readdress the issue that I've pointed out several times.
So could get a motion to continue the public hearing till our May meeting.
all right, I'll do that. I will. I'll make a motion.
Got a second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We're going to close this.
I make a motion. No, we're
Continue.
We just continued it. We don't have
Yeah,
to close it.
we just continued it. I don't think we might have much time for updates.
Yeah, no,
This-
I have to read it.
Okay.
So a motion to adjourn.
Yeah,
Could
can I
we-
get a,
We just adjourn the meeting and have his update next time?
yeah.
Oh, we already did my updates. It's just
Yeah.
the next agenda item is in case you guys have any
Yes.
updates.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Can I get a motion to
I move
adjourn?
we adjourn.
All, second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.